Good morning, everybody, and thank you wherever you are for joining us this morning for the 2022 State of MP. This is typically an event that we would be having in person. In fact, this was planned originally in person, and I feel like this is a broken record at this point, but multiple years in a row, this event has gone virtual. So our hopes are in the future, we get to bring this one back in and celebrate with you in person. The State of MP for My Possibilities is an event where we recap the excitement from the previous year, the accomplishments from the previous year, and we bring in our closest friends, family members, donors, community partners, and really reset and level for what is coming in the following calendar year. We're still going to do that today, and it's also an opportunity to bring in thought leaders from the North Texas area and have conversations that we believe not only align with what we've talked about and what the future of My Possibilities is, but also to provide perspective on our industry, on the North Texas world and kind of what's happening there. So you'll get to hear a little bit more from our special guest in a little while. The first thing that I want to do is thank our sponsor for this event. That is Bank of Texas, and unfortunately not joined by the Dallas market president, Mandy Austin, but she is really a big supporter. The bank's a big supporter, and they are kind of what drove this event for us this year. So again, thank you to Bank of Texas for sponsoring the State of MP this year, and we hope next year we'll all get to be in the same place and we can high five and thank you in person for your support. So with that, before we get going, what I'd like to do is welcome an important person up to the stage. For those that have been following or tracking with My Possibilities, you'll know that we've had not only are we excited about the future, but we've also had some really big changes, or just things that have never occurred before in the history of our organization. And one of those is a transition of the chairman of the board. So I'd like to introduce you to the new chairman of the board, Ms. Karen Wald. Karen, how are you?
Good morning.
So I say it that way, and this is not, it's not a normal thing. Typically when an organization says there's a new chairman of the board, it's an expected, of course, that's how things happen. But for My Possibilities, we have been blessed with a founder and a chairman of the board who served in that capacity from the day of the napkin all the way through 12/31/2021, 14 years worth of dedicated service, and that's Charmaine Solomon. And Charmaine is still on the board of directors, and she's still very engaged in our world. But for the first time in the history of My Possibilities, we have a new chairman of the board. No big deal, Karen.
I was okay until you said that. Now I'm a little worried. What did I sign up for?
Well, so tell me a little bit. I mean, I'd love your thoughts, and I know that there are many supporters that have been part of the My Possibilities family for years, may have not had an opportunity to meet you. Give us, a little bit of perspective. You're stepping into this role, the cliche of big shoes. Yeah. Clearly, Charmaine is a special person and somebody who's really driven the soul and the culture of our organization. Yeah. It's a big move to have somebody come in and say, okay, now here comes, MP version 2 or 3 or 4, wherever we happen to be. Your thoughts on taking the role?
Wow. First of all, I want to echo comments you made. I mean, Charmaine was, of course, an incredible trailblazer for the IDD community. And, we owe so much to her passion and her zest for the hipsters and for My Possibilities. It is daunting to follow someone like a Charmaine. Yeah. She is My Possibilities. But I'm very thankful that she has the trust in me to be a good steward for My Possibilities. Yeah. And I hope you feel the same. Yep. But I'm very excited about this. One thing I do want to say is whenever I talk about My Possibilities, one of the things I always say is that you never leave a meeting or have a conversation with staff that you don't hear the what ifs. What if we did this? What if we could do this? I mean, that is who My Possibilities is. And it really started 20 years ago when 3 or 4 very, very passionate moms decided they needed to pursue a different way for their children. Yep. When they left the ISDs. It's big shoes, as you said.
It is, and I don't know if you know this, it's in the bylaws. Charmaine and I both have a My Possibilities tattoo. It's in the bylaws that the incoming chairman, I don't know if you read that.
I did not see that. But
Okay, we'll talk about
now,
that.
is this a transfer that I can use?
No,
or do I
it's-
have to have?
it's permanent,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's permanent, okay.
So, in your voice, where are we headed? Where's the organization headed? What are some of the things that are on your to-do list, so to speak, as the incoming chairman?
Right. Well, one thing also I want to mention is Charmaine has built an incredible board. So I'm left with a highly engaged, passionate group of people to work with, and that surely is exciting and also makes this role much easier.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that we are very proud of when I think of our board is their commitment to the mission of My Possibilities, and pursuing the untapped potential of all of our hipsters is foremost in their mind. So along that path, the organization has 5 strategic paths,
Yep.
but I think maybe we should just talk about 4 today.
Okay, sure.
The first one is, and it's always foremost, it's, in the future, just as we have in our past, we will always be focused on enriching and in fact, expanding the programs and the services we provide to our hipsters. And at the heart of that is a thriving campus, and I think you're going to talk about that in a moment. So something that we're very proud of. The other thing is, as it relates to our programs, I hope that we will see significant expansion in placing hipsters in the workforce. That's very close to my heart. I have seen firsthand what it means to put a hipster in a meaningful job. Truthfully, the benefits for the company far outweighs that for the hipster.
Yeah.
And so, I'm anxious to see us really accelerate our placements.
It's interesting. That's one of the things that I think is a positive or a silver lining from COVID for us. While we had made quite a bit of development in talking to corporations about hipster employment programs or really bringing our population into the inclusivity conversation, for whatever reason, or maybe it's the great reshuffle, maybe it's just everybody's looking at work differently, the conversations at a corporate level approaching us and saying, okay, we're ready to do this, has escalated in the last 6 months and 9 months even. And so I do think, to your point, that the inclusive workforce aspect of what we do will be a major piece of growth.
Oh, absolutely, especially in the environment today. Who doesn't want somebody dedicated, shows up every day, committed to do their best work, right?
That sounds delightful. So what we talked about programs, talked about career services.
Residential, right? Along with some very key stakeholders in the community, we're looking at really addressing the needs, the residential needs of our hipsters, their families, and even the larger IDD community.
Yep.
What we imagine, of course, is creating a residential neighborhood that is fully inclusive and includes the amenities that every vibrant neighborhood in North Texas expects. So very excited about that, and I know that that everyone should expect to see a great deal over the next year or two in that world.
Yep, it's one that I really want to say all of the things, and I can't.
I know.
But I do think that is one of the downsides of COVID. It absolutely pushed some of those plans off a bit, but that is, I anticipate this year, to your point, the community is going to hear a lot more about residential this year, which is a major piece of inclusivity for this population.
Right. And then I think after residential, when you think of those, both programs and residential, of that great magnitude requires funding.
Yeah.
And funding for nonprofits, of course, is always our challenge, but it's the lifeline of the organization, right? So some of the things that I think that we can expect to hear more about is really looking at social enterprise initiatives, identifying these for-profit models that align very well with our own mission. I think will be a success to the organization as far as helping us continue to sustain our programs and build new ones.
And in the realm of sustainability and funding, from the fundraising side, there's some work on the foundation as well.
Oh, right. And so I would call our foundation in its early stages of formation. And I think that the team there, our development team, along with the foundation board, we're going to really see a lot coming out of that group. And in fact, I really believe in the next year or two, they will be instrumental in providing the revenue, the resources that we need to have to grow.
So 1 month in, and you've already communicated expanding programs, expanding career services, launching residential, new social enterprises, expanding a foundation. You know, I feel like you are stepping right into the general line of a Charmaine or a board president of MP. So.
Well, I'm trying, okay? I'm trying. But you know what? The last 2 years have taught us to be nimble. It's taught us to be agile. It's made us reimagine everything. And so, you know, it's time to move forward.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm excited to work with you. I know that our team is, our leadership team, and I know the board is as well. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the community, but I do know that there are people that love to engage at a board level. So for those that haven't had an opportunity to meet Karen, but you are a community partner or a supporter of My Possibilities, reach out to us, and we'd love to make that introduction. So Karen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
And we'll get moving. All right. Yeah, big shoes. That was it. I will say this for Karen's behalf, it wasn't like a 1 month conversation. The idea of stepping in and carrying MP forward beyond a founder has been an ongoing conversation, and so we really are, we're thrilled to have her in that seat. So next up, and briefly, what I do want to do is provide a little bit of a snapshot of 2021. I think you know, the expectation is that most, and it really is, it's the reality for most of the nonprofit sector. It was another really challenging year. But I think what's beautiful about where we ended up as an organization is, despite budgeting going into 2021, we were concerned about the outcome. We were concerned about the growth of our programs and really did not know what to expect. And looking back on last year, our organization excelled across all of our programs. We expanded our therapy program to the largest it's ever been, served more hipsters in more hours than we ever have before. Our personal wellness program trained more hipsters than we ever have before, and we outpaced coming back to the program and serving hipsters in an educational capacity on site, and launched an online program that continues to operate today, which has been crucial over the course of the last 30 to 40 days as Omicron has continued to create health concerns for our population. We came out of 2021 looking at where we were and said, there's no way we could have painted a picture where we accomplished everything we had set out to accomplish and put ourselves in a position to sort of reignite some of those fires that we had before 2020, March of 2020. So to that end, Karen alluded to something I was going to speak to in 2022, and I think this is something that a lot of our donors, our families, our community partners have been waiting for. You've heard the story. On March the 26th, we were prepared, of 2020, we were prepared to build the second building, our Career Services Center, which is truly, in our opinion, a missing link and a step forward for the inclusive workforce game plan, which is providing specified job training for our hipsters. 9 days before that construction date, COVID hit, shut down the world. We had no clue. We were just in a complete state of disarray, and we did not start construction. And looking back, it was the right decision at the time. Fast forward 20 months, and we're here, 22 months, and we're here. And the news is that pending, I don't want to put any pressure, Karen, board of directors, pending a vote to move forward, which is actually happening today, we are looking to begin construction on that second building. We are looking to open those doors to up to 250 additional hipsters on a weekly basis. It's a huge, not only a huge thing for inclusive workforce, for demonstrating the value of inclusive employment, but it gets through the My Possibilities waiting list. It opens up opportunities for others that have been concerned about where they're going to go when they graduate high school. So for the first time in a couple of years, it puts MP in a position to move forward and expand our programs in a way that can serve more people in North Texas. It has been painful to not be able to do that for the last 2 years, and our organization has been very patient, which is not a skill set of mine, in making sure that we don't do this until it feels right. Through the support of the community, our donors, through the success of our programs and the dedication of our staff, we are in a position to move forward this year. It's the best. It feels so good to say those words, even though you're not even in the room with me. It feels, I can see all of you smiling, and there's an applause in the background. It's so great. So that is the exciting news moving forward this year. It's a big piece of our long-term plan as well. It's almost this massive domino that needed to fall to propel everything else that our organization is planning on doing in the future. So if you are interested, there's a lot of different ways to get involved. I will point out that this same building that we would have built in March of 2020, that building in 2020 cost $7 million to build, which is not a small dollar amount. That same building in 2022 cost $9 million to build. And we had previously closed a capital campaign, and that puts us in an awkward position to continue to drive for revenue but not do it through capital campaigning. So you may not be hearing about those initiatives as much, but we are absolutely still looking for partners who see this second building as a way that they can get involved in the community and something very valuable. So if you're a corporation, you're thinking about inclusive employment, and you want to do it in a big way and do it right, not only can we help you with your programs internally, but you can help us build the center that is going to be training and providing you with your future employees. And to Karen's point, future employees that will build not only be efficient and effective in their job, but will help build positive culture for your company. So that's coming. If you're interested, please reach out to me, reach out to Susan and the development team, reach out to Karen if you know how to get in touch with Karen already, but let us know that you're interested, and we will absolutely plug you into the right place and have you a part of what is going to be a very exciting 2022. So now I shift one more time, and I'm going to talk a lot less and listen to somebody who I get smarter every time I have an opportunity to talk to this guy, and then at the same, I also steal jokes every time too. So I get funnier externally and smarter for everybody. I'm excited to introduce Byron Sanders to the stage. Byron's a long-term friend and a leader in the North Texas community. Byron, it's good to see you, and I do. How are you, friend?
It's funny to see you here.
Yeah, well, he was just walking on campus.
It's crazy. I was just meandering about UTD, as I do.
That's it, on a regular basis.
Right, from Oak Cliff, it's the way to get away.
And we do need to point out, you and I did not coordinate outfits today.
Not intentionally, but I feel like we are on a wavelength.
It looks really good.
It is.
I would love comments from home. What
Please.
do you think about the choice of plum jacket and pant combo between the two of us? Byron.
And shoes. If you don't, I would like to point out, I don't know if the camera can see it, but I was also coordinating my pants and shoes with your jacket. Yes.
I don't have those shoes. I'm a little.
It's fine.
Okay. So Byron.
Yes.
I don't have time to read the whole list.
Please don't do that.
So I'm going to hit a few things because I have to.
All right.
Byron is the president and CEO of Big Thought. For those of you who are familiar with the organization, an amazing organization in the Dallas world, changing the lives of youth in the Dallas community. You've been doing it for a number of years. Byron, you've been there. I think you just celebrated 4 years in the CEO role.
Yes.
On the board of directors prior to that.
Yes.
On top of that, presidential leadership scholar. I have to put that out because that's not a small thing. I know because I got denied.
Keep swinging.
Board trustee of the University of Tulsa.
Yes.
And I think most importantly, husband and father.
Here we go.
And I'm curious, we're going to talk about innovation in the realm of being a husband or father. It's the most innovative thing you've ever done.
Most innovative thing that I've ever done. So we just recently bought a house in Oak Cliff.
Yep.
Was able to move back there. Grew up in Oak Cliff, Southern Dallas, all my life, and growing up, and then coming back to the community was a sincere desire. We finally were able to do it. Now, this version of me as a homeowner, because we previously owned a home in Addison for like 12 years, up there I cared nothing about the lawn.
Yeah.
Not one bit, okay? Pay somebody as long as things aren't biting me when I go out there. And
but you're not doing it.
I'm not doing it at all.
But you got tools now.
Let me tell you something, Michael. I am completely electrified with now a mower, trimmer, hedger. I now have a wonderful, wonderful chainsaw. But the most innovative element of this was actually introduced to me by my brother for a gift. Sometimes the sun goes down.
Yep.
And I'm still having a great time outside doing something.
Yep.
And you need light, Michael.
You do.
Guess what I now have?
Oh, a light.
I have gloves with LED lights on the fingers so that I don't have to hold a flashlight in my mouth
when you're working.
under my arms. You know, we've tried lots of different things. I can just point and light. I feel like an Avenger.
It's fun listening to somebody
So
who's been welcomed into this innovative world of
Absolutely.
owning a home. They also have little things you could just put lights on.
I know, I have one of those.
Okay.
It's not nearly as fun.
So I've got one more fun, but also not directly. It's warming us up to the topic, I promise.
Yep.
You and I share something in common that we've talked about a lot that they probably don't know yet, and I'm about to out you. They would expect this from me, maybe not from you.
That's cool.
You are a giant fantasy and science fiction novel nerd.
A lot of people don't know that, yes.
And now they do. And I'm excited that we got to do this live today. So I'm throwing a question at you that's a little different. In business meetings and conversations and conferences, there's someone that always says, I'll tell you about a book that I read that really helped me in my professional world. It's by Covey or it's by Brene Brown and they're business books and that you should read it because it will help you with your life.
That's right.
What is a fantasy or a science fiction book or series that has changed your personal or professional world?
I would say, thank you for asking that question, my friend with 2 first names.
3.
Really? You're right. Oh, man. Okay, this one. You and I are big Brandon Sanderson fans. I'm also a fan of another writer named Joe Abercrombie. And he's written a book, a series, a whole world. And the first one is called The Blade Itself. And there is a main character in that, and his name is Logan Ninefingers.
That's right.
As you can tell.
We have not scripted this. He had no clue this question was coming.
I did not.
I love Logan Ninefingers.
Logan Ninefingers.
Yeah.
They call him the Bloody Nine. He's a kind of a berserker, lost a finger, hence 9. And he takes life as it comes to him. And sometimes, though, he hits his own.
Yeah.
And when he hits his own, he gets hyper-focused. I found a lot of that in me because I have actually attention deficit disorder. A lot of people don't know attention deficit disorder. One of the things about it is everybody thinks it's like shiny objects, you're following shiny objects, things like that. You're lacking kind of this serotonin level. So once you find something and you lock in, ADD people actually get more focused than most other humans. And so for me, that's kind of what COVID was for me. I locked in.
Yeah.
And I'm always pretty dedicated, pretty driven. But in that instance, you kind of had to hit a zone.
Yeah.
As a leader. And if I were to kind of draw any kind of corollary between, as you just outed me to the world, the fantasy novel, high fantasy, dark fantasy, all the kinds of fantasy. Yeah. Logan Ninefingers and the zone that he hits when he goes berserker, that's kind of where I had to be as a leader, as a professional over these last couple of years.
I would the quick warning is it's not for 13-year-olds.
Highly not. No.
But
children, if you see anybody with talking about Logan Nine Fingers, you need to check their stuff.
Give them some Harry Potter or something.
That's right.
It's a great recommendation. I'll have to tell you. I'll give you mine later.
Okay. Blade itself is the name of the first book. Please check it out.
So let's jump into the topic, innovation in the nonprofit sector. There's a lot of social enterprise discussion and creativity discussion and all this stuff. I want to dive into some questions that really kind of hone in on what innovation is, in your opinion, in our world, and then kind of what we need to do moving forward to see more of it. I think one thing that I want to point out that is a definition, a line between two realms, is something our team has been talking about a lot lately. It's the difference between creativity and innovation. And creativity being true original thought, the coming up with something that people have never heard of before. And that's not what I think we expect from the nonprofit sector. True, unique, independent, creative thought is scary. It's the Elons, it's the things that when they're talking, you just go, I have no idea what that person is talking about. Innovation is calculated, deductive, compiling of information and adjusting things and putting something out that's new. And doing it in a new way for an intended purpose.
Yes.
So when we talk about innovation in the nonprofit world, give me some examples, maybe in your world of Big Thought, and this could be pre-COVID, it could be maybe something that has happened as a result of, but something that truly is an example of innovation that you've been a part of.
That is a great question. And also, I do want to spend a little bit of time on that creativity and innovation paradigm. Because one of the things that's actually part of our thesis as an organization at Big Thought is creativity is a basic human trait that as a muscle that should be built can lead to innovations, right? It's actually a core asset. The thing that is interesting is, if I've done this before, I do it frequently. If I ask a group of people, are you creative? I was actually speaking to a group of CEOs, entrepreneurs, and I asked them, are you creative? Who in this room would count themselves as creative? And out of probably about, I think it was like 50 people in the room, 3 of them raised their hands.
Right.
3. Which was interesting. I asked them, okay, why? And each one of them had some sort of artistic thing that they did on the side that, qualified them as being creative. And what's powerful is I'm in the room with people who literally created businesses and solved problems in unique ways, and none of them considered themselves creative.
Right.
If I had asked them, hey, are you innovative? A lot of them would have said, me. Me. That's actually a problem because with the world changing so rapidly, and COVID is actually kind of a snapshot of it. It's a microcosm, but we've been rapidly changing already. AI, machine learning. You and I just finished talking about electric vehicles and how much the world is shifting. Like with the world changing so rapidly, LinkedIn in 2 years in a row had creativity listed as the top workforce skill across all sectors. And they did it in their entire industry scan. Creativity is a strength, it's a muscle that has to be built, and we need to start taking it seriously about creating experiences for youth and adults to build creativity.
So that the comment about the importance of creativity and innovation in the for-profit world, it's almost like you go, well, of course, because if you're not changing, if you're not growing, and if you're not developing what it is that you do, you're behind, you're dying.
100%.
And at the same time, innovation and creativity in the nonprofit space is way more challenging to get funded, 100%. Get moving, get supported. I mean, it is almost like the expectation is to continue doing what we know that you do, and don't do so much of this other stuff, even though that is exactly what the expectation is for the rest of the world.
So to illustrate that and to talk about what we're doing at Big Thought as an example, right? One of the innovations that we have brought in, so people have historically known us as an out-of-school time summer programming organization, right? Yep. What we knew is that we had to design those things. We're also an ecosystem facilitator, so we work with hundreds of other partners. We call them learning systems to actually do the same thing in large groups, right, affecting an even broader set. We've been doing that work for a long time. But we said, okay, there's probably a market out there to channel those strengths, assets, into value for a lot of different situations. It's part of our strategic plan because we're now saying we want to go and affect institutions, yep. Right? Institutions not just being like school districts or cities, things like that, but we're talking about, capital markets. We're talking about corporations. We feel like we have to spread this news that creativity itself is a strength, is an asset to be built, because then if corporations are asking for it and our human development pipelines like schools are building it into their models, the world will be better because people will be more creative because they've been
It's such an interesting disconnect in that LinkedIn and the corporate world, and they're all saying number one skill set, creativity. Yeah. And when an organization goes, we want to do something that's creative, they're like, well,
whoa.
Slow it down a little bit.
Slow it down. Where has this been done before? It's new.
That's my favorite. It's my favorite question, Byron. Where has this been done before?
My favorite question, Michael, is actually it was done before in other cities, but who's done it here?
Yeah.
And we're like, but those are similar humans.
Right. They're also.
It could also work
maybe
here.
Because it's in a different state. Outside of a border that we've created. It worked there. We can drive down 7 hours and it probably...
Special Homo sapiens up there, bro. Chill out.
It's Chicago.
So what we did, Michael, is we started a consulting practice. This after-school organization, we're not an after-school organization, by the way, but that's what we had been called. We started a consulting practice called Big Thought Institute. And it was about spreading the concepts, infiltrating that into different places and spaces so we can get this kind of sea change that we're talking about, and revenue generating. And I'll give you just a little sense of how that's played out for us. An example of some of the projects. We just helped Main Event, if you all are familiar with Main Event, lots of video games, right? Having a great time, go there. Very clean place, right? We helped build a curriculum for them that turns each of their gaming centers across the country into a STEAM learning lab. So now with a facilitated instructor who is, a prize on this curriculum, family reunions, school trips, churches, and all that stuff, people can go there and actually have a learning experience, which was really important during COVID because traditional places shut down. You can rent out the place, all that jazz. So it's a revenue producing strategy asset for them now, as well as a CSR engagement.
And revenue generating for you and helping them create it.
Which ain't half bad.
Yeah, that's right. It's not a bad model.
It's not. So we did that. We're actually in the process of wrapping up a similar type of experience for the College Football Hall of Fame on a couple of different projects for them. We help build McAfees. You guys are familiar. McAfee helps keep your computer not, popped up.
Yeah, there you go.
Popping up like popcorns, right?
Yeah.
Keeps you safe. We built an internet and web safety CSR curriculum for them. So all of this stuff that we've been doing for our programs, we realized there are multiple applications of those.
Right.
And we've been able to do that for private enterprise. We just finished one for Butler University. Like, it's just a wide range. You want to know about revenue? I think we're about 600, 700% of goal right now.
On that initiative.
In Big Thought Institute for this year, mid-year. And so, it's really helpful.
Sounds decent. Those are decent returns. So I have real quickly, because we don't have a clock, and you and I will probably do this till 10:30 or so. Give me a ballpark on time, just so we know where we are.
We're at 8:34.
So we got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Word.
Got 19 more questions.
Okay,
no,
cool.
I don't. So
Right.
you just mentioned a couple of corporations,
Yeah.
and they're funding you in ways that there are formal partnerships and initiatives that are going to benefit them.
Indeed.
Let's talk about the role of the corporate world, or we'll start with them first. We'll get into maybe the foundation world or the donor world here in a second. But in this, as you're developing these innovative and creative ideas for the organization, and you're looking to drive initiatives forward to expand the work that you do, and ultimately to serve more people, right? I think that's
it.
The bottom line, the true bottom line for organizations in our space is to fulfill a mission.
Yeah.
How you do that, historically speaking, in the charitable sector has been done kind of one way. Things are changing a little bit. So from the perspective of corporations, so you and I both, and we've got Dallas-Fort Worth is a wonderful place to be in our space because there are so many successful and major companies, and they're, for the most part, very engaged in supporting the community. What is their role in supporting innovation in the nonprofit space?
Their role is to not just give us money. We love the money. We need it.
We do.
Really
We do
helpful.
love the money. The money's important.
Super helpful. And we want the volunteer engagement. That also is very important. I know MP has some phenomenal volunteer opportunities that a lot of corporations plug into. Same here at Big Dog. But the other part is we need partners. And I know a lot of times we're like, hey, you said it earlier, we're looking for more partners to invest. What you said was like, I need y'all to give me money, right? Because I got a thing I got to build.
I do.
Which is true. But for real partnership, though, because for us, case in point, I don't have, one of the things that we've done, we've created this entire ecosystem. We use Dallas City of Learning as a big ecosystem that initially started out for just summer learning, but what we're saying is if you connect all those different summer experiences that a kid can have across an entire region and across their, journey from third grade to graduation, you actually have a portfolio of skill sets that you've built. Whether it was a STEM camp, theater camp, all that stuff, and each one of those camps translates to some sort of 21st century skill that you're building. If it was theater, it's public speaking, communication, right?
Yep.
A drone camp is almost self-evident. I know how to build drones now, right? But you have this whole thing, we call those learning pathways. That doesn't mean anything unless there's a payoff and a place to plug in and say, okay, now this is worth something.
Yeah.
Guess who helps me make that worth something?
Yep.
Fidelity, Fossil, Bank of America, Boeing. I need partners to help make these ecosystems viable.
Not just write the check to the organization and
Come
go,
on.
we're supporting you guys and we love you.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting, the parallels, and I'm mentally kind of looking at all the other different spaces. The nonprofit space, philanthropy, love of humankind, love of people, like regardless of who
It's Latin.
the person is. That's Latin.
Good job.
That was Latin.
Flex.
Thank you. Regardless of who the person is, our goal as a sector is to provide these pathways into the rest of the world. And in a world where, we're blessed to be in the U.S., we've got an amazing economic system. There's a lot of potential opportunity, but we know, you and I both know, based on the hand that is dealt, the situation, whether it be from a societal and an economic perspective or a cognitive perspective, it is going to be way harder to get into that world. What you're talking about is, yes, fund the work that we're doing to provide them with this pathway,
Right.
but also partner in such a way that once we get them to this point, you can pick up and drive it forward.
We have to have a pipeline, and we have to have these baton passes, if you will, that are not just, left up to serendipity.
It was an Olympic reference.
Yeah, it was. And it has to be intentional. It has to be literally built into the model itself. Right, and so it's
Not an afterthought.
It shouldn't
once
be an
you've done the work.
afterthought because I need to be able to tell somebody. I need to be able to tell these youth, and I need to be able to tell them, mother, father, tia, somebody that, hey, if you do engage, the theory, the hypothesis that we're putting out there is real.
Yeah.
Because here's the problem, man. A lot of people don't believe in institutions. If you really think about why somebody would drop out from school, it's because they don't think that the thing that they're doing right here is valuable.
Is not an equitable amount of, like, the time they're spending in that system isn't actually going to get them to the next step.
And if you layer marginalized communities on top of that, black and brown folks, people who are living in concentrated poverty, you know, your time horizon for decision making shrinks because I'm trying to survive, right? And so if I'm out here and I have to figure out where the next meal's coming from, how to keep the lights on and all that stuff, and you're like, hey kid, you keep your head down for 13 years, it's gonna pay out.
And you're gonna make it.
Okay, you can do it. And
it's a lot easier to be long-term like that when you're not worried about the next meal or the light bill.
Exactly, right? And so how do you create buy-in? Because there's a lot of systems that need to change, and we can't change them all at once. So it's gonna take something that allows somebody to persevere through, quite frankly, some crap.
Yeah.
And there need to be payoffs along the way. Who helps give me these payoffs and also a belief that continuing along this pathway matters? Our corporations and partners have to come in and be part of that.
And so it's a beautiful segue too, because what we've just framed up is the relationship between the nonprofit sector, traditional programmatic nonprofit sector, and the corporate world. Important partnership element. Don't just fund, partner.
Yeah.
And also, I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible, and I'll probably get in trouble.
Cool.
But I have been told that there are no board members watching. Is that right?
Yeah,
Just kidding.
none.
The reality is corporations, when they say partner, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times that partnership is from their lens and what they believe will be a valuable partnership to the organization. What you have described is we need partners who will come in and just say, how can we be a part of the work that you're doing?
Yeah.
And that is a different kind of partnership.
Let me tell you something, Michael. That right there is the transformational stuff. Because if people think about, here's what if I had a magic wand, but a limited magic wand, because if I had a real one, then I can
Totally different.
go to town.
Yeah.
But a decent magic wand, one of the things I would do was wave it and help people start to think about the nonprofit sector differently.
Yep.
I think a lot of times people have thought about us as charity.
Yep.
People have thought about us as a good program in this community to serve these kids who might have been here, or these hipsters who've come here in like this 100 group or 200 group of people. Great. I would like for us to start to think about nonprofit as research and development. We should be thought of as the R&D space for society's most intractable issues. We should be thought of as the experts on how to fix some of these things.
It sure does change the mindset of funding and partnership.
Sure does.
When a corporate world or the just general world looks at the sector as the people that are trying to figure out how to solve complex societal and world issues.
Yes.
So instead of that being like the afterthought gift, it becomes an investment in the world and us as a people. And that is definitely flipping.
It's flipping the script, brother.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you get some nerds. You know, a lot of times people get like a group of nerds who everybody knows is smarter than them, and they're like, I need you nerds to come up with something that's game changing. Be a nerd. Go do that thing. Here's some money. We have a couple of objectives, right? A high-arcing objective that we need you to go. But I am acknowledging you're the nerd.
Yeah.
You know how to build this thing, and I don't.
Yep.
I want to be a partner to you. I want to get you the resources you need.
It's so interesting.
We're the nerds.
I appreciate it. We are the nerds.
Yeah.
We already admitted that.
Multiple levels.
Yeah,
the whole fantasy thing was.
You went deep on a magic
I
wand
did.
reference a little while ago.
Yeah, man.
So the corporate world funds internally innovative ideas, R&D. Like, it is an expectation there that, hey, go put those 12 people in a room. Our objectives for our company are X, Y, and Z. You guys go spend a week, a month, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, and come back and give us new ways to do that.
Right.
That's not a thing in our world.
Yeah.
But to your point, there are people who we can do that. The challenges from the funding and the time and we have a mission to also fulfill. And when I think the world perceives that time spent in creativity and innovation and what's next as a conflict to serving people today.
Yeah.
And the reality is we have tons of people to serve today, and the only way we're going to get to them is if we spend time over here and finding other ways to do it.
That's right, because otherwise we just continue to perpetuate a cycle.
Yep.
And then we start to exist for our own existence, right?
That's a challenge. That's a dangerous sentence in our world.
Exactly.
But the reality is many people have spent a lot of time in this space, specifically if you've been in a leadership role, you have that sort of like existential internal dilemma of why do we exist to continue to do this? We should be trying to do more. The conflict there is but the how behind it.
Yeah.
I don't have even a mediocre magic wand and can't get to where it's like, go do it.
Right.
So we talked about the corporate world. I think we understand, you talked about what flipping the partnership realm looks like and why that's important as a pathway to that next step for different populations. The philanthropic world, when I say philanthropic here, I'm talking about the foundational world, the donor world, the lifeblood for a lot of these organizations. People don't know is for all the money, many do, but for the money that comes into the nonprofit sector in the U.S., in 2020, it was about $450 billion.
Yeah.
70% of that money comes from people, and about 18% of that, the next 18% comes from foundations. That is the vast majority of inbound resources to an organization. So we talked about the corporate world, which actually only makes up about 5%.
A lot of people didn't know that.
Of the funding that comes to us.
Yeah.
But we acknowledge why that's important, because that is still a part of the pathway of a human being's existence is into that world.
Yeah.
But from the funding standpoint of donors and foundations, what is their role in innovation for our sector?
Yeah. What I would say is, and even with individual funders and foundations, there's a big spectrum there, right? Like there's people who give big major gifts, and then there's the everyday person who's like, hey, I got $50, I really like your mission. They too need to shift their understanding of how, of the point of philanthropy. Again, because it will cause them to do a couple of things very differently. One, I believe that more people would start to lean into trust-based philanthropy, which is just moving out of corporate parlance and moving into a different frame of talking. It means, again, the people doing the work, closest to the work, probably know more about doing that work than somebody who's not doing that work. That's it's mind-blowing, right? Huge.
Yeah.
And the other part is this. When I said we should be thought of as kind of R&D, that means that something has to happen after you learn something that came from the research and development.
Absolutely.
Which means that scaling oftentimes involves public policy, advocacy. The idea that if we take some of these notions, they should scale to both government solutions and large private enterprise solutions. We should start to take these ideas, concepts, and embed what we've learned, which necessitates that people who give to these organizations, one, are cool with these organizations speaking up about something.
Yeah, right.
And pushing for policy changes because, again, they're the front lines, working with the communities most proximate, they know. And two, it should start to affect their own independent daily lived decisions on where they choose to spend their money, how they choose to live a more sustainable life, what votes they are taking. Like, you can't just act like all this stuff that you're supporting on one side doesn't exist with the other half of your life. And so what I would ask for is for people who are individual givers and foundations to also start to move with the concepts, the ideas, the issues, the innovations outside of the gifts that they give to a nonprofit
Right.
space.
Yeah, and that is, you drew the line between the foundation world, the individual giver donor world, and also the dollar amount world. And I would probably point out that the scale of their interest is probably directly in alignment with the size of a potential gift.
Absolutely.
I would love to say that every nonprofit organization has dozens and dozens and dozens of major donors. The reality is many of our organizations have a handful. And so one of your message to the donor is being involved in this process, being involved in thinking beyond the gift, and at the same time you have to sort of align with the societal challenges, the governmental challenges, all these other things, the advocacy work.
Yeah.
You have to be a part of what is a bigger.
That's right.
When you make the gift, you have to understand this is not just a tax write-off to an organization.
That's right.
I'm an active participant in where this is headed. And that is a different kind of donor conversation.
Yep.
And it's not one that happens often.
Agreed.
And so I would agree with you that that's something that we should be talking about more. The foundation world and innovation, so specifically, let's think about the consulting innovation that you guys have come up with. How does the foundation and the organization, how does that conversation go where you say, hey, Thomas Foundation, I don't have one, but Thomas Foundation.
There's one out there. We know
There's
gotta be.
I should hit them up.
Yeah.
So we're related.
Family. Brother. Cousin.
How do you approach them in that moment and say, hey, traditionally you have granted money to the organization because you care about this program. We have a wacky R&D, forward-thinking, never been done before thing. How, that conversation, I want to have it so many times, but it's how do we break through that mold? What would a foundation have to do to enable that conversation to happen? Because I guarantee every leader of a nonprofit in the country, but in the DFW region, we've got some of these ideas,
100%.
but the likelihood that the foundation hears about it is small because we're concerned. I'm playing my hand a little bit publicly, but we're concerned that if we put the crazy stuff out there to a funder who has been consistently supporting a thing that fits, that we lose them.
Yeah.
So how do we create the safe space, and how does the foundation welcome those conversations with and put our world at ease?
It actually, so my background is also in banking. I was at
The dark side.
The dark side.
I mean the great
right?
side.
The green side really is it's green.
It is green.
So I worked at a bank in the private bank side. So we, dealt with deals all the time, right? Private equity deals and, managing portfolios, all that kind of stuff. One of the things that PE firms do is they do look at the numbers. The numbers obviously have to matter.
They gotta make sense, yeah.
Got to make sense. But the biggest thing that determines whether a private equity fund is going to make a significant investment in a organization, in a company, corporation,
I know where you're headed.
across any stage, right, is the leader.
100%.
It's the human being.
You mentioned trust earlier.
And that's why when people say trust, when I say trust-based philanthropy, it doesn't mean like you're never asking for any kinds of results or outcomes.
You have to do that.
You got to do that. But a trust-based philanthropy means how you set the mark is actually in partnership with that leader.
Yep.
Here's the other thing that I think is people might not know. We're really proud of the stuff that we do. At our organizations, right? Like my whole squad, like we're really proud of the things that we do. We actually want to show somebody. We want to tell somebody. And if we have an idea, we actually want to see, is it a good one or not, right?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, we're not going to keep doing it.
But the challenge, and this is what I see and I hear more often than not, is the fear of failure in one of these ideas from the nonprofit side will be the reason they don't communicate the idea and they don't ask for that money.
That power dynamic is undeniable. And so because we've been trained to think that, right? Give you money, you miss a mark, they're like, hey, these numbers are down. Looks like it's not working. You don't get that money. right? And you need the money, lights, 403Bs,
Yeah.
you know, people are counting on this money. So absolutely, everything's going great,
Yep.
100%. But if we really want to get to some of these game-breaking solutions, if we really want to get to like actual collaboration between organizations that makes so much more sense when people say, you guys should work together, that's cool, but you know, if you give me money, am I jeopardizing that when I work with this person? So, so we're not going to partner, right? Because again, 403Bs, that's retirement for folks who don't.
In the nonprofit.
In the nonprofit
It's the
sector.
nonprofit 401k.
It's a special kind of retirement.
It is.
Lower.
Yes.
So when we're thinking about all of that stuff, but if a funder, if a foundation or somebody starts to look at this and approaches this from a trust-based philanthropy, the funny thing is they actually are doing a ton of accountability work in the relationship build up to the investment.
Yeah.
That's where all the work takes place. It's not in the holding us accountable or cracking a whip after money has been given. You get to know that human being. You get to know that purpose, that mission, their infrastructure, the strategy. You get to know that organization that you're thinking about making an investment in. And then once you say, okay, I'm in, go in.
Right.
Be in with them all the way.
Right. And
Because we're going to learn something along the way, and stuff's going to break because it's a hypothesis.
But that break part is the part that I think we need to hear. So maybe the suggestion I've got, or at least an idea, would be in those conversations with the foundation world. When they're approaching an organization, they need to be able to say, or at least we need to hear, we want to see the metrics, we want to see results, we want to see, how this is going, and if it doesn't turn out the way we're planning, that's okay, one, and we want to know what we learned, because there's still value in the mistake or the misstep or the, hey, this didn't work, because then that foundation has knowledge as well.
Yeah.
It gets back to R&D. Well, I don't know what the hit rate is of the R&D departments. It's probably not 100%.
It's not.
And they know that when they invest. So when the foundation world, when the corporate world, when they're investing, because we like to use that word.
We say it all the time.
Because we think that's the word they want to hear. But the reality is we really want investment in that we will come back with information. The hope is we're successful and we serve more people. Worst case scenario is we learned this time and we will be successful and we will serve more people as a result of that misstep. So so that completes hour one. We have 5 more hours today.
Sweet. Did we get a snack?
So Byron, last we're wrapping up. We got like a couple minutes left. Real quickly, final word of wisdom. Something, the average, whether it's a person, a foundation, a corporate partner, whoever it is that's been with us today, and this talk is actually going to live long term too. So maybe it's 3 months, 6 months from now. For the people in the future, what's a final parting word of wisdom, or in the realm of innovation in our space, something you would want them to hear and take away from you today?
Citizens of the future.
Citizens of the future.
The thing that I would love for you to take away from this is innovation. Innovation, this is a thing I did not get to, but parting thought. Innovation is so much better when you have a range of different voices in the room, including the voices of those most affected by the thing that we're trying to innovate. That is really hard to do, because usually the way systems are built and the way the world works is those people, they're called marginalized because they are literally on the margins, right? And it is harder to bring them in. We're thinking about really interesting ways to actually live that to an even higher degree at our organization. We've created a youth advisory council because we're here to
bring
work
the
with youth.
right?
Exactly, and not to just do things to them and hope they work, but to really have them as co-architects and co-designers of the world, including ours.
You're talking about equitable engagement in innovation, and whether you are a corporate partner, a foundation partner, a donor, or within the organization, everybody needs to be on the same page that our best ideas, our best creativity, our best innovation will not happen without the people we serve acting as a voice in the process.
Boom. That's it. I picked up this mug to really drive that point home.
There's no coffee in it anymore, is there? But it looks really good.
Yeah, it was good.
Well, with that, that's the final. That's the final. That's it. Yeah. We want to thank everybody that's joined us this morning. Again, we're sorry that you can't be here in person today to join us. Next year, that will be the case.
It's because they're lazy. Nobody came here. It was just us.
And COVID.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And COVID.
That's right.
I didn't call you lazy. Byron Sanders, CEO of Big Thought, did. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate it. If you're interested in anything that you've heard today, whether it's the growth and expansion of MP, our second building, corporate partnership, the work that Byron's doing at Big Thought, bigthought.org,
Bigthought.org.
mypossibilities.org. We appreciate